I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Jess, to set us up a bit and talk about kind of getting your head in the right place, talk about imposter syndrome. And a lot of people have gone through this, whether you've been laid off, fired, you quit yourself, however, you're just trying to start a new role, you're trying to get gigs, whatever it is, you have the power. And now it's over to you to get everybody jazzed up in the right place. I'm going to be in the background making those breakout rooms and putting people into their councils, and then I'll get everybody ready once you're done. So 15 minutes or so.
Perfect. Sounds good. Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. I'm not trying to fool anybody, even though it is April Fool's. Today on imposter syndrome, I want to ask a couple questions. Have you ever felt either, I'm going to go through a list of emotions or thoughts or feelings that you've ever felt. And if anybody, just go ahead and raise your hand. Have you ever felt that you have an inability to assess your competence or skills? And this doesn't mean that I'm not fully able to recognize what I did well and not well, but sometimes even the things that we do really well, we're not really good at assessing those either. Have you ever felt that ever before? I know I've been in that category. What about attributing your success to anything external or any external factor? So it was somebody else that really led the team, or somebody else brought me in, but really you're not showing up fully as yourself and accepting and recognizing that. Or berating your performance. We are creatures of habit and we like to shame ourselves a lot, especially when we're not performing to the expectation that we think. Fear is a big one too. Fear that you're not going to live up to those expectations. Sometimes we feel like, yes, we did it, but it wasn't enough still. So we're constantly shaming in that regard, or even sabotaging your own success. And so when you're put into a room of opportunity, you downplay, again, skills and competence levels, and then saying yeah, well, I guess, it went well, but I could have done this a little bit better. Self-doubt is a big one when it comes to imposter syndrome, doubting. And then setting very challenging goals or feeling disappointed when you fall short. That list feel familiar? If so, you might be feeling like you're in imposter syndrome, which puts you into almost a category of 5 different imposters. One of them is the perfectionist, and the perfectionist feels like if I don't perform everything exactly how it's supposed to be, you might fall into that category. Then there's the expert. The expert feels like they have to know everything before they can tackle that task. Otherwise, I'm gonna sit back and watch because I don't feel competent enough. The other one is the natural genius. And so this type of imposter usually will typically think that if they don't get it the first time, that must mean that they don't know how to do it and I might be exposed in front of everybody else. The fourth type is the soloist, meaning if I can't do it by myself, then look, I'm clearly incompetent or don't have the skills or the expertise to engage in whatever task that is. The last one is the super person, meaning that I have to be the hardest worker, do the most all the time, which then creates burnout. And if I'm still not getting recognized, well, then it feels like I'm not the person that they're wanting, needing, all the things. So if you're fall into any one of those 5 categories, those are the typical list that imposter syndromes typically fall under. I have in the past been the perfectionist and the soloist. And if I felt like I couldn't get there on my own, I wasn't worthy enough, which is exactly why this group, this setting today is in a huge thing for all of us to be able to build in community, to reach out with one another, that we don't have to feel like the imposter syndrome, because it hits everybody. 70% of the population, the world population, falls into an imposter syndrome at one point or more in their lives, especially after some type of setback, whether they get removed from a job, didn't get the promotion, etc. The idea behind today is to really look at our skills, our capabilities, and challenging our thought process on really who we are and what we're coming to the table with, because everybody here has a unique set, and that's what we're willing to draw, or not willing, that's what we're wanting to draw out today. So when you start to get any of those feelings that I described earlier, what I want you to do is think about it in this way. Our brains just want validation. When we feel anger, when we feel sad, when we feel disappointed, whatever, our brain says, listen to all the things that I have going on. Can you justify what I'm feeling? And so we'll go talk to a friend and be like, yeah, I can't believe that guy was that big of a jerk. Why did he let you go? You were the best one there, all the things. Well, if I keep feeding that voice, I'm creating this vortex or this tunnel, like a tornado that's bringing all of that information back to that set point of, look, you're not enough. He was a jerk, all these external factors, or she, not just he's. But it creates this vortex that's going to send you more of that because that's what you're focused on. Now, if I jump over to the other side and say, like, I have this skill set, I learned this from that opportunity, I'm starting to build momentum that's going to allow for productivity, creativity, and sending you the right people that you need to get to your next goal. One way to validate is this simple method. And it's weird once you do it, and I'll explain here in a second. The first way to phrase this is of course, and then whatever the thought is or the emotion. So of course you're frustrated, and then make sense and justify the emotion. Make sense because you really wanted that job. So let's just say you applied to 5 other jobs, you got an interview, second round interview, and then all of a sudden they didn't call you back, or they said, no, we're going to pass. We're going to go with somebody else. That disappointment arises or frustration comes up. You say, of course you're frustrated. Makes sense. You really wanted the position. Then in that moment, it contains the thought or it contains the emotion so that we're not creating this vortex around like, look, I must not be enough. Look, I all the things. When that we contain it, then we get an option. We get to say, and now, what do we want to do? And now apply for some more. And now be disappointed for 2 minutes. And now whatever the action is that you want to take, that's what we want to focus on. We don't want to create the scenario where we're wrapping ourselves around all of the like the not so great feelings, because that vibrational pull keeps you stuck and it's sticky and it's really hard unless you're intentional to get back up to the place of contentment, excitement, love, creativity, which is really at a higher vibrational level, which is what we want to get to, but we also have to validate it. Okay, so let me rephrase how to go through that technique. When we start to feel those emotions of disappointment, fear, whatever, sadness, anything, it's of course, whatever the emotion is. So of course I'm sad, or of course I'm disappointed. Makes sense. I haven't found a job yet. It doesn't have to be fluffy at the end. It's validating why I'm feeling that emotion. Once I've validated it, your brain literally will go silent for a second. And it is the weirdest feeling. When it goes silent, you now have to fill it in with what you want to tell your brain to do. And now go get a drink. And now walk outside, take a breath. And now whatever the action is. Our brains are hardwired to go down several different loops if we let it. But our job is to be the gentle parent, like a seat at the table that tells our kids, hey, knock it off, stop talking like that. When they get loud and mouthy at the table, we are gentle parents to shut them down a little bit. We're doing that with the same voice in our head. Validate it, but we're not going to give it much more power than that. And in these groups, if you want to identify more about what those voices and emotions sound like and they feel pretty dominating, I'm here to help you through that process as well. Liz, anything else?
Amazing.
No,
Okay.
that is amazing. That's really helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jess. So you can remove your spotlight
Oh,
there.
sorry.
Okay. All right. So hopefully that's helpful to reframe. Dr. Jess is going to be with us. Not that she'll be on every single Monday's call, but as she's invited to them, and then she has offered to help us out. If anybody has questions, just really needs to just share, then we can call her in as well. So I have put all of you into your council rooms. What I'm going to do is have you in there for 30 minutes to start off with and check in on you. I think that all of our rooms, let me double check what I've got. They all have 3 to 5 folks in them. So the maximum number of people that I've got in a council is 5. And most of them are booked out. I do have some people that couldn't make it to this particular session. And so I will send you all a note individually with your council group so that you all get the recording to what Dr. Jess said, as well as the homework assignment. But what we're going to do in these council meetings today, you'll all go into breakout rooms and it's introduction day. So everybody spend 5 minutes just sharing a little bit about, real quick, like the background that you have so that we understand what type of job you are looking for. Do you want corporate? Do you want small business, startup? Do you want a huge enterprise? What are you most comfortable with? This does not need to end up being the place that we go job hunting together for, but in your head, We're just going to get all of that out. And then I would like for you to take the sentence that Dr. Jess has given you. Of course, your makes sense, you. So Dr. Jess, do you want to suggest how they could do this for each other?
Yes. So one way to do that is telling somebody in your guys' groups of like where you're at right now. What's your headspace look like? My headspace right now is just I'm clouded with frustration or disappointment. And then just like explain why. So why are you frustrated or disappointed? Well, I've been on a job search for the last 6 months, or I keep getting into interviews, but then the second round, I never get the follow-up, or I never get the final say like, yes, you're in. And so now I'm feeling like I've lost motivation. Now, if you start to hear people start to say multiple things, like I feel lost, or I feel not motivated, or I feel disappointed, reel them back in and say, well, which one's more dominant? And then justify that. We're not here to hear all the sob stories, and I'm not trying to say that your story is not justified or worth hearing, but we don't want to create that vortex in here, be like, oh yeah, me too. Yeah, my boss did this, or I got laid go. Like, we're not creating that type of energy. We're validating it to know that like, yes, that's real. And now what do we want to do about it?
That's perfect. So you're going to go into those rooms for 30 minutes.